Hi, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. We're going to start today with a land acknowledgement. OCAD University acknowledges the ancestral and traditional territories of the Mississauga of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat, who are the original owners and custodians of the land on which we live, work, and create. We would also like to acknowledge those who came here involuntarily as a result of the transatlantic slave trade. Welcome to Encounters with Artists. My name is Billie McFarland, and I am our facilitator for our interview today. This project consists of 18 third and fourth year students. After weeks of thorough investigation into an artist's practice, we have curated questions that we believe are fresh and exciting for the artist and the audience. So we hope you enjoy yourselves. You can think of this as a real-time deep dive into what art students are wondering about contemporary artists. This project was made possible through the generosity of Lady Elizabeth Pixie Mudge Massey Shaw. So let's give it up for her. We will be hosting a total of 4 interviews between now and April. And for our first interview, we have the pleasure of hosting established Canadian artist Micah Lexier. A prolific curator, collaborator, collector, and creator, Micah's body of work spans several decades. He works in various media, including print and design, though he may be best known for his conceptually based sculptures. His work is installed in public spaces in both Canada and internationally. Please join me in welcoming Micah Lexier. And while we are not hosting a Q&A, if you do find yourself drawn to Micah and his practice, we would like to invite you to an informal coffee and chat tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. It will take place in the Experiential Learning Center at the Rosalie Sharp Pavilion, which is 115 McCall Street. I would also like to just note that if you could put your phone on silent or do not disturb, we would really appreciate it. And now I would like to introduce you to FIZZA, who has written an introductory spoken word for our guest today. FIZZA.
From puzzles to patterns, and problems to philosophies, Micah Lexier loves it all. There is no such thing as a mathematical equation that is too long, and there is no such thing as a problem that is too small. As a supporter to fellow artists, he collects trades and commissions, making sure others are appreciated for all the work that they have given. He is an inspiration, filled with imagination, giving us all motivation to enhance our creativity, to enhance our productivity, and to overcome our negativities. He is interested in coins, numbers, and obsessed by the process of living, not to mention the countless number of awards he humbly continues winning. From having 15 permanent public commissions to being showcased in over 200 group exhibitions, Micah has been awarded in visual and media arts, while his work has been showcased internationally in many different parts. On this special day, we gather for a unique style of interview. Welcome to OCAD, Micah. It is so nice to finally meet you. We hope our conversations create a remark. We hope our conversations are ones that you keep in your heart. Thank you.
Wow. That was awesome. Thank you. Really nice.
Awesome. Thank you so much, FIZZA. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrew Rankin. I'm third year illustration. I'll be one of the interviewers tonight.
Hello, I'm Athena Grace, and I'm in third year sculpture and installation.
Hi, I'm June Jun, and I'm also in third year sculpture and installation.
All right, and tonight we'll be presenting some curated questions from our team of 18. This is our team in the front row right here. All right, so that's enough mercy for you. Okay, so how do you come up with ideas for your work?
I'm a problem solver, and so it's often a response. So I'm a responder, and that's why I don't have a studio practice. I don't just putter away. I respond to a context, whether that's a space or 16 pages of a zine or an invitation, and so I just kind of yeah, I guess in a simple way, I'm a responder. Yeah. And I teach a course, I've been teaching a course on artist multiples, and the very first assignment I teach is a kind of response. Because I think people feel a lot of responsibility to just to generate things. And I know myself personally that I'm the thing that I like about myself, or the thing that I've learned is my quality, is that I don't have to initiate. I just have to kind of like observe and then respond to that thing that I observe. So I've learned that as a kind of strategy or trick or mechanism for making work. Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a tiny little bit about collecting.
Yay!
So, first, I guess I'm most curious about how you get away with it. How have you been able to, throughout your life, collect these things and not have people say, stop? Or maybe have they? I'm just curious, how have you managed that?
It's never been a problem. I also think, like, you know, I come from a long history of art. And like, if you think like nothing is like, do you guys all know who Marcel Duchamp is? Like in 1916, he like put a wheel on top of a chair. You know, it's like, or he showed a urinal. It's like, that was this is 2024. Like, there is nothing we can do now that would seem radical. Like, I can't imagine what we could come up with. You know, so within the context of art, I think what I'm doing is prosaic, even. You know, yeah. So I guess it's just like we're lucky. We live in the art world. It's I think a fairly open world. I mean, it's a big world. There's no one art world, and I really think people just want you to do what you want to do. Like we're not doing anything for money. We're not doing like, you know, we've chosen this kind of weird career. And so I really have learned over time that all people want you to do is whatever you want, because people are kind of jealous you get to be an artist. And so like the only thing they want of you is to be happy. You know, they want you to like, well, if you get to be an artist, like at least someone gets to do exactly what they want to do. And so I realized just in my inclination, I love to collect. It's sort of that same response thing. It's like, why make it if it exists, you know? And it's really found its way into my work now, where like, I just had a show in Berlin and it was based on a found image. You know, it's just sort of, I almost don't have to come up with an idea. The archive, my found collection is just this incredible source of inspiration for me. Yeah.
And I also, just as a follow-up, how do you know kind of what makes something valuable enough to keep it, to collect it?
Well, I like the unvaluable, you know. I mean, I like the car, like these. I carry like on my chain like a little knife, and when I'm walking around on Thursdays, which is a great like recycling day, I'll cut out a piece of cardboard, find things on the street. Nothing, you know, go to a hardware store, a stationery shop. It's actually kind of affected just how I operate in the world now. When I go traveling, I definitely like have to go to the stationery shop, like, and the world is changing where everything's super homogenous. And so while there's still like a modicum of those like mom and pop stores, like, you know, it's often it's an old mom and pop, and you know, they're about to sell to Staples, you know, it's like, I love going into those places and finding some kind of like out of stock paper, and that's going to form the next like piece that I make. I've kind of made a rambling thing here, but the kind of the less significant, the more interesting it is to me. And the same is when it comes to collecting, because not only do I collect stuff, I also have a practice or I have a hobby of collecting like out of print material, stuff from conceptual art. Well, it's like anyone can collect Andy Warhol, anyone, you know, can collect Ed Ruscha, and I'm trying to find those, what I call also-rans, like someone who still was active, but they're not the famous one, but they still made really interesting work. But their work isn't as valuable or as, you know, known. And for me, there's this nice little opening. There's this nice spot where I'm buying it because I like, or buying it or collecting it or keeping it because I like it, not because it's valuable. So this whole notion of value kind of for me is inversely proportional to how much I love it or how much it's mine, as opposed to like, you know, an Ed Ruscha is going to stay an Ed Ruscha, but, you know, a Yuri Velouche, like I found Yuri Velouche. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's sort of like the less they're sort of in the stratosphere of well-known artists, the more it's my choice to like that artist. You know, like anyone can like the Beatles, but don't you love some little indie band that you discovered on some trip or something like that? It's about that relationship to the kind of, you know, yeah, I use that term also ran, which is, it's a term from horse racing. Like there's the trifecta, you know, the winner, the second and third, and then also ran. And I'm just very fascinated, because I consider myself an also ran. Yes, I know I'm being lauded here, but it's like, I've never represented Canada in a biennial, like, you know, like I found my kind of place in the world and I made peace with that. And I really do consider myself a kind of also ran. And I love that position. I really, really do. When someone buys my work, they're buying it because they love my work, not because it's going to make more on resale when they, you know, hang on to a couple of years. Because in fact, it goes down, you know. So there's something I've not only made peace, but come to really love the place that I am. And that's kind of all melded with the things I collect and the artists that I'm interested in. And it all kind of comes together for me.
And it just, again, I guess it is truly like a true collector, because a true collector does collect the things that kind of were off the major label. They collect the different things that are sort of off that. Is that, would you say that that's sort of what you're doing as well?
I think there's lots of different kinds of collectors, but I am definitely a collector. I mean, I'm such a collector. It's like, it's, you know, it's psychological or something at this point. It's pathological at this point. You know, I have no money, but yet I'll still go on eBay to find that little nugget that like no one else has found in the world. It's definitely a part of like my personality. It feeds me. I'm so charged up. You know, it's like a drug, I would say. It's very much like what people get from drugs or sex or love or what, any number of those things. Like it really, really feeds me, makes me feel very alive, gives me a ton of pleasure. But I've always been a collector. Like when I was a little kid, I would go to like, and I'm thinking like, well, I'm sure I've told this story before, but so it's a long story. Is it okay to answer the really long?
Yeah, because we've got a little bit of time.
So I'm Jewish, and you know, that's like any difference is always awkward for a kid. And so school would give you an award for perfect attendance, but we could never get perfect attendance because there were Jewish holidays, which our parents would take us out of school. So we could never officially get perfect attendance. So as a kind of antidote to that, my parents would give us a gift at the end of the year for perfect attendance. Because like you could not be sick, you had to go to school when you're sick, but the only time you couldn't go was during the high holidays. And I'm not a religious person, and it's just a fact that we just didn't go for those 2 days, which means we didn't get the star at the end of the school. So to compensate, my parents would let us pick a gift. And one year, my gift was a tool chest. I picked a green tool chest. I wanted this tool chest. And so I had this tool chest, and I figured, well, what am I gonna put in this tool chest? And so I discovered that at the malls, there were these little kiosks where they'd cut keys for you. And so I discovered that at the end of the day, they had all the like keys that were kind of, they made a mistake, and they just have a little bucket of like faulty keys that they would just throw out. So I would go near the end of the day and collect the faulty keys. So my very first collection was faulty keys, like keys that didn't work for anything. And I just filled this tool chest with like faulty keys. And I only at this moment telling you the story does it now remind me of, I don't know if you're going to show slides of my hoards of coins, like boxes, metal boxes with coins. It's exactly that image, right? I didn't even realize that, but it was a kind of jewel. It was a kind of like precious thing, this metal object. I mean, it had no value, it didn't cost anything. And they were the rejects fitting back into this also ran, you know, but they had this tremendous value for me. And anyways, where did we end? So collector. So I was a collector right from the beginning. And then even like fast forward to, let's say, being like just in university, I had a job as a waiter to make money. And I would come home and just like, what section I was in, how many tables I served. Like so that's another kind of collector. I collected information, like how much tips I made, how much I gave to the cook staff, you know, that kind of thing. I just would have like, so I discovered these, like, I've always been a collector, whether it's physical things or information, which now brings me to my latest collection is Instagram. I really find Instagram is a kind of form of collecting. And it's really like this ultimate form for me, because it's like things I collect, things I make, promoting other people that I love, you know, that kind of stuff. So that's a super long answer to collecting. Sorry,
Yes.
done.
No, that's totally great. Because, yeah.
Yeah, and in response to your responses.
Look at that face.
I know.
Who found that photo? Whoever's in charge of screen grabs, you're fired. Yikes.
No, but
Sorry.
you gave a video tour of your home to the power plant, and you showed your extensive art collection in your home, and we were wondering what your reaction is to non-conceptual art, because that seemed to dominate your...
Oh, I'd say lots of it's non-conceptual. I mean, you know, I think, like, I do like conceptual, but I mean, just look on the wall. That's not a conceptual art piece. That's not a conceptual art piece. Most of them aren't conceptual art pieces. I like clean things. I like minimal things. I like lean things. I like understated things, but definitely not just conceptual art. Yeah, I think that would be a misnomer. Yeah.
And so how do you evaluate the artwork when you choose it?
Just like anything that I collect, it's just intuition, you know? It's just like, you know, when you like somebody, the first second you meet them, you know you're gonna like them. It's, you know, I mean, it's an answer that we all, you know, I think we all know the answer to that. And sometimes there's things that on paper I should love, but I don't, you know, like, it's just like something so obvious, you know, that I should love it. It's a coin and it's in a corner, but no, there's something with the patina that's off, you know? But then something's like, you know, a rubbing of thing and it doesn't look like anything that I would like and I love it. So I think it just comes from, again, that thing I was talking before, like, just own it. Just own what you like. Just like trust your intuition, own what you like, trust your, you know, yeah, I cannot say trust your intuition more. I mean, it's the biggest cliche in the world and it's the truest cliche in the world. You know, your body knows, you know, like your body, yeah, it's just like all your years of education and regret and wrong decisions and learning, like, you're supposed to like it so you like it, just like own it, you know? Yeah, and then that's a big task, is to just come to terms with that, or how to listen to that part of yourself when making work. I mean, I think I'm getting better as an artist because I'm sort of learning to just be like, to know when certain little like emotions or thought processes appear, you know, like you're overriding yourself because timing's coming up. And so now I've learned to like ask for more time, because I used to think like getting the thing in on time was the most important thing, even if you didn't like it. You know, it's like, oh, the deadline. But it says like, I really want to love this thing I'm doing. Could I have an extra weekend? Could I, you know, to just solve this problem? And that always pays off. So, yeah.
Thank you.
These are rambling answers. My goodness.
They're so good.
We want you to just keep going as long as you want.
Okay.
And then in terms of your own work, like how do you determine the meaning of an artwork, or do you even give it meaning?
Thank you. I don't. I really don't. You know, people say like, oh, who do you make your work for? I make it for me. You know, I really do. And you can't imagine. That's not to say I'm not a generous person. That's not to say I don't think about others. But I really just make what I want to make. And then you'll always have someone else like who likes it too, because at least you've got one. If you somehow, oh, I'm not really liking, but I'm sure someone will like this, or this seems like what they want. Like, it's possible that 0 people will like it, but if you really like it, at least you got one. And if you like it, you're not so unusual, you're not so unique. There will be other people that kind of like it. So it just goes back to your first question. Like, I don't generate anything. It's like, oh, we're having a 50th anniversary. Would you do a book bag design? Like, yeah. And like, the smaller the project, better for me. It really is. Like, if I could make a living just doing book bags and zines, I would. I mean, I can't, so I have to do public sculpture and things like that. But I've also found a way within the public sculpture to only tackle projects that I believe in, to just only present ideas that I really want to spend, in some cases, 7 years working on, and you know, and just really, just really want to represent myself and my interests. And then I know if I do that with some kind of honesty and integrity, that lots of other people are in line behind you. Yeah, yeah. But meaning. Yeah, there's not a lot of meaning, just, you know, a lot of not of conscious meaning, like, oh, I must do this, I must exercise this part. It's just more like, Yeah, but again, I'm really lucky because my collecting really feeds me. Like, it's almost like I'll be collecting something on eBay when an email comes in to like, will you do something for a thing? And it's like, oh, you know, like, it just kind of like, you almost let that magic happen. And I really believe like success and all this is just a question of like luck and happenstance and, you know, and so I just sort of like, oh, I know, it's just like sort of just trusting the serendipity of this thing happening while this invitation came in and just seeing if those two can kind of overlap. And then like listen to yourself, is that working? Yes. Enough that I can keep going? Yes or no? Reset, go downstairs. Because I have like, I don't know if you have pictures of my basement, but there's like about, I don't know, 1,000 books in the basement that are like how-to books and things like that. I'll just go like randomly downstairs and just start opening books till I find a kind of image that kind of like sparks something. And yeah. It's hard to talk a lot in general terms. Like I really do like talking about specific things, how I solve that problem, you know? And those are a way to kind of illustrate those ideas, you know, better. Yeah.
Well, then I would like to ask a specific question.
Yay!
About some of these collaborative projects where you have a whole bunch of other people coming in and writing one word, for example, in this story, and in the Shepherd and Leslie subway station, but also in the 1,334 word story and the children wrote the each word, and you collaborated with the teacher, and the teacher got the whole. I just want to talk about how, just speak a little bit about that connection of that very small, that individual, that one scripted word within the whole, and that whole, what does that all mean to you, and bringing that together? Just maybe if you could speak to that.
Great, yeah, sure. Yeah, I will, I'll talk about a couple of these ones, because that's definitely a strategy. I hate that word, but I mean, that's just one of my techniques as an artist, is this kind of like crowdsourcing kind of projects, and each one's, you know, slightly different. The one you talked about, 1,334 words for 1,334 students, came again like a problem solving. So there was this really famous teacher named Don Ball. Maybe did any of you guys study with Don Ball? He was at Etobicoke. Was that one of the art schools? Super well loved teacher. Anyways, he wanted to bring me in for a workshop. I'm like, Don, I don't do workshops. I don't know. There's nothing I can teach, but I'll do a project, and your students will be like my assistants, and they'll learn through experience. He's like, great, let's do that. And so I do a lot of work. It's kind of portraiture. I kind of consider it kind of collective portraiture. And so I'm not sure where the idea came from, but this idea was like, well, what if I do like a collective portrait of this whole school, but I'll use this one class to be my like assistants. And the idea was, I'm not sure how I can trace back where I came up with the idea, but I was gonna hire a writer to write a short story that was as many words long as students in the high school. And then I would task my class, how are we gonna get all these students to sign? Like, how are we gonna get each student to sign one of the words? Because there were many options in my mind. I knew what I would do, but I thought, well, this is a great way to kind of teach a workshop on conceptual art or process art or whatever you want to call it, is what I do. And so I tasked them. It's like, that's your task. I got the writer to write the short story.
Pretty good writer, too.
It's an amazing story. Let's call him Toybin, which you guys probably know is like a Booker-nominated genius. Anyways, I got him through a friend of a friend who was running the Toronto International Film Writers Festival, and I originally wanted this other artist, but writer Paul Auster, blah, blah. Problems Are Good. We'll get to Problems Are Good. So I couldn't get the one I wanted, so I got this other guy. He was amazing, and we become friends, and it's all nice, and he's amazing. And he's been asked by a lot of different artists to write. So he creates this character named Malik that he uses. And so, like, for instance, Derek, who's the crumpled ball guy? Martin Creed. So there's a Martin Creed essay written by Colm Toybin, where Malik walks around the street and finds these Martin Creed sculptures. So he brings this Malik character out. So this Malik character is the subject of this story, who's a kid not unlike the age of the students in the high school. So it worked out really good. Anyways, to make a long story short, the students figured out how to get the kids to collect the names, and they did, and we made this really beautiful collective portrait of the school, and the students kind of like had this problem-solving thing where they weren't responsible for everything, but they were responsible for the mechanisms of making it. And through that, I think there was a tremendous sense of accomplishment, and it was a real kind of collective action. This one is a subway station. It's the Shepherd and Leslie subway station on the Shepherd line. And I will say it's one that I'm a little disappointed with. I think it's a shockingly wonderful idea. So the idea is it's the intersection of Shepherd and Leslie, and I hired like summer students to take these little ballots around and get different people to handwrite in their own handwriting, Shepherd and Leslie. Mm-hmm. And so it's about 3,500 different people handwriting Shepherd and Leslie, and a little ballot that we blew up and then silkscreened them with glaze onto tiles and printed them. So it's a really great idea, but it's a little underwhelming formally in the space. It's just too kind of like wallpaper. There's no strength. I don't know. That's one project that kind of, if I was really brutally honest, like got away from me a little bit, where let's say I didn't trust my gut, or the process was a little too complicated to say, hold on, let's stop for a second. I want to like evaluate some different color combos, or is there another way to do it? Or so that's one in my mind. It's really a lovely idea to have like all these people handwrite, and from afar it looks like details. And you get up close and you see individuality, and that whole notion of like subways and like throngs of people, and you're looking out. You're an individual looking out, but you see a whole field that's kind of generalized. But the whole idea of the individual and the specific, like it's all there. But it's one where I don't think it's as successful as it could have been. Yeah, just to be kind of brutally honest with you about the kind of. So I tell everyone, again, sorry to repeat myself, there's only so many stories that one can tell, but I'm the son of a interior design mother and an engineer father who ran an architectural office, a modernist architectural office. And I really see myself as like, whenever I make work, especially public artwork, sometimes it's like a little to the left, a little more orange, and other times it's like, like how's that joining up to that thing? Like there's the engineering component, and then there's the kind of decorative component, and those are two very important parts, like within particularly public sculpture, because I'm one who really wants to, like maybe it's a faulty made, but I want to impress the installer. It's not just the front. Like I don't just want this thing that's kind of like stuck on the wall, it looks great from the front, and then like the installer's like, oh, that's really badly made. You know what I mean? I want it to look as good from behind and to be as thought through. I do want to impress this installer, and I want to impress the viewer. I really want both of those things to work. That really means like a lot to me. That experience, even like working with the team. Like I remember I had this big show at the power plant, and it was this massive installation of all these objects, and I don't know why, but the audience for me was the installation team as much as it was it really was like, I really just wanted it to be impressive all the way through. And I figured, it's like good ingredients in, good product out. I just really wanted it to just be like it was like the highlight of my life. And I just wanted everything about it to just be this incredibly quality experience. Like I wanted them to talk about, oh yeah, that Micah Lexier was really organized. I don't know why that would count to me as much as the person like, that was an amazing show. Like I want both of those. I want both of those feedbacks. Yeah.
I was just going to comment, because your collection and your storage of I Am the Coin is beautiful. Like the boxes all lined up, and then the boxes that are all appointed for each of the coins. It's just.
Thanks, I was pretty proud of that. Yeah. So you've seen the video of the making of and all that stuff. Yeah, that was another one. But we were given a really good budget that allowed me to do it properly, and I had a wonderful, wonderful curator, Don Kane. I don't know if you guys know her. And that to me, like, that's life. That's your dream. It's like you're making something you want to make, and you're working with someone who you love, and just the whole thing kind of like comes together. That's the meaning of life right there. It's not, there's no like the ends doesn't justify the means. Like the means is is the thing. Yeah, like all those cliches. I'm such a big believer in cliches. Like it's the journey, not the destination. I mean, it's the journey and the destination, but the journey is a big part of it because there's no remuneration. Like we're not making tons of money. We're just living our life and doing these things. And like, sure, being a lawyer is hell and you put up with shit, but you make hundreds of thousands of dollars. You know what I mean? There's none of that in the art world, At least in the art world that I'm in. Yes,
But you maybe don't live very long.
What?
You maybe don't live very long.
If
Or
you
you maybe
do that?
don't live happily.
Well, no, I mean,
there's the
that's my
trade-off.
that's
if
my
you're
judgment.
if you're a lawyer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
If you're a lawyer,
some
if you're a
people are-
lawyer.
I think it's also good to be true to yourself. I'm sure that get tremendous pleasure in like screwing someone else out or getting a better deal, or I'm sure they do, and that feeds them. Like, and I wouldn't say all the power to you, but at least they're being kind of true to themselves. So part of it is about
Being true to you.
trying to put like what you need to make it through this world. Yeah.
For the power plant show, you named it More Than Two, Let It Make Itself. And I was interested in how do you negotiate control? Because you set the parameters slightly using your vitrines, and you're known for your meticulousness and those vitrines. So how are you exercising your control while collaborating with other artists?
Super good question. So just to fill other people in. So I had a show at the power plant. It was called 1 and 2 and More Than Two. And it was like in every space in the power plant. 1 was solo works. 2 was collaborations with writers that include the Colum Toybin and another one with Derek McCormick, another one with Kristen Book. And then a third show called More Than Two. And that was a curatorial project. And that was a curatorial project that, just to give you the whole backstory, since we're recording this, it's all in history now. There's an organization called the Toronto Friends of the Visual Arts. And every year they give a grant to like a curator, someone who's contributed to the art world in a curatorial or organizational sense. And about, I'm going to say, I forget how many years ago, 15 years ago, 14 years ago, they gave it to Sarah Milroy, who's now the director at the McMichael. But at the time, whatever, it doesn't matter. She got this award. It was, I think it was like $10,000 or something. And she decided that instead of keeping the $10,000, that she would use that as seed money for an exhibition of young artists. And she hired me to do this exhibition of young artists because she knew how much I identified with young artists, like to promote young artists, felt in some ways that I had some interest in that, predilection for observing and discovering. I felt got a lot of pride of like discovering someone before they're well known, like that whole like it's so easy to like someone who's already famous. It's really nice to say, oh, I saw them first. I saw their show. It was really amazing, So she knew that was something I was into. So she gave me this seed money to curate a show. And I said, well, I didn't want to kind of ghettoize young artists in just a young artist show. The best thing we could ever do for a young artist is to contextualize them in a larger show. Like, I don't want to be in a Canadian show. I like being a Canadian artist in a show, So I really felt the true gift would be to show younger artists within a larger context. And so somehow this exhibition grew that I was going to do this curatorial project looking at kind of Toronto art within my own mind, seeding it with a lot of younger artists, but kind of, putting them in the context of important artists. To make a very, very long story a little bit shorter, the show then got picked up by the power plant. And then that was really just the only thing I was doing at the power plant. It kind of grew into this larger thing. Okay, so now we've got this show, this curatorial show. And so it's a kind of controversial show because I didn't necessarily show artworks by these artists. I went around and did hundreds of studio visits. Like I spent an entire year meeting with anyone I could meet. And then when I'd meet with someone and say like, can you recommend a couple other artists that I should know? Because I didn't expect that I knew everybody. And I did have a kind of earlier idea. It was called alphabetical by artists. I was going to organize it very structurally. And then I started just noticing kind of connections and dialogues. And so the show kind of made itself. So the show's called More Than Two, representing the group show. The More Than Two meant group show. Let It Make Itself was not only about the show itself, kind of grew, made itself, not that magic thing like, oh, I just sat and the show made itself, but about about observing what connections were being made and following that and being true to that. But also then looking at works that were about making. Things like a lot of tools that artists made to make their work. Things that, like, things they did, like transfer papers that they'd reused many times. But I said, oh, can I show that transfer paper? You know, so so some people would, you know, trace things onto paintings, but then they'd use that transfer paper 6 times and it would have the ghost of 6 different drawings. And so I showed that. Or like an artist who, let's say, had a lot of facility and so they wanted to create a little kind of difficulty for themselves. So they put a pen at the end of a wire so that they wouldn't draw as well, so the drawing would be more interesting. So I showed like the, you know, so it was a lot of the tools of the making of things. Or let's say someone had like 6 parts and I just want that one part. Or, you know, things that have been rejected by artists. So I kind of went around and just said like, what's that in the corner and stuff like that. So some, and palettes, you know, Kim, what's the painter, thick impasto painting? Kim Dorland. Kim Dorland, I went for a studio visit with Kim Dorland and like he had this like incredible palette of like orange paint that he had kind of rejected. It was too orange. I was like, what's up with that? He's like, oh, let's show that. So it was really a show about like making and it was really very much about my work. Like I made an installation with 100 other artists' objects. And what we did is we didn't, so it's like a series of 30 vitrines in the space. Do we have an image of it? Is there, no, okay, no problem. So it's a series of 30 vitrines. There's nothing on the walls. It's just these vitrines with these objects in the vitrines and the little tiny numbers, little tiny numbers. So the idea is like, yes, Michael Snow was in the show. Yes, you know, people were in the show, but you couldn't go find that work. I didn't tell you where the Michael Snow was. You had, like, if you love that piece and it's number 17, you go look at the checklist. And the checklist is Michael Snow, but the things weren't ordered in numbers. So you could not find, you just had to look at the work. So a lot of it was like a fuck you to like labeling and like, just look, just enjoy these things. Like, don't go looking for the famous artists, which again, goes back to that idea of like contextualizing the young artists and then the larger. And then, but I think it was a kind of a controversial show for some people because they thought like, how's this a group show? Like, but to me it was like, well, I'm just making art, so I didn't care that. But I think what it did is it let the institution off the hook. It's like, oh, we did a big Toronto show. No, you didn't do a Toronto show. You let Micah like choose all these things in this context, you know. But then there were other people that gave me a hard time because I credited the artists. He thought that I shouldn't, like one of the critiques I got was like, no, you've made art with these other things, like let them be anonymous, just, so it was controversial in that way, you know, because like some felt I didn't credit the artist enough, some felt it shouldn't be about the artist. It was kind of split the difference where like, is this really a group show? I made a ton of enemies because it's one thing not to be in a group show with 7 artists. You're like, oh, of course I didn't get in a show with 7 artists. But you chose 100 fucking Toronto artists and I didn't get in the show. And so someone came up to me and they said like, how are you dealing with all this bad talk about you? And I was like, well, I didn't know that. You know, like, I'm not saying it to my face, you know. So I do know that it was very controversial for that, upset a lot of people to not be in it. But it's one of my proudest moments. Like, it's just a really beautiful thing. It's a kind of like interesting question about, are you allowed to use other artists' works to make your work? But you know my practice, it's all about found things. It's all about the handwriting of other people. And so in some ways, that's my territory. My territory is, for better or for worse, is like claiming stuff, you know? Yeah, so it's just funny, that right balance of like, I did credit them. Number 7 is Michael Snow. I said it's Michael Snow. I didn't say it wasn't Michael Snow, you know, kind of thing. But I did use Michael Snow, or I'm just using, you know, to tell this larger argument about what was happening, what I was noticing, this kind of river of activity, you know, that like this thing connected to that. And wow, are these long answers?
No.
Yeah, we appreciate the long answers.
Because you know that many questions, is that it?
Because, well, we really paired the questions down.
Because you know I'm a talker.
Just in case. Just
the
in case.
rumor has
No,
it.
it was just in case.
Yeah, we're nervous about speaking, so.
Oh,
Take it away.
well, I'm not.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I might say I'm nervous, but I'll do one. So what is something you've always wanted to do in your career as an artist, but you haven't had the chance to yet?
Wow. Wow. Do you mean professionally or like a particular project or?
Anything.
Yeah, you know what? I tell you, there are a few things. I always had this, so I love just observing on the street like a father and a son that look really similar, you know, or and this, you notice this a lot, let's say in like mixed racial families where like there's an Asian mom and a white dad and then the kid is like mixture, and you see like the kid being exactly even. So I just love observing like parents and children. And I've always wanted to have a van that was a photo studio. And then just walk around, and when I find these arrangements, these combinations, just saying like, I'm an artist, I'm doing a project, can you walk into the van and can I take your picture?
That's not creepy at all.
You got from appropriating people's artwork to appropriating people.
They're mine. They're all mine. I observed them. I saw them first. I get so much. I mean, you know, if you're with me, anyone who knows me knows how much I just love that. Or like the son who looks just like the father, but like a 3/4 size, or whatever. You know what I mean? Or just like, yeah. That stuff drives me crazy. I just love that. So that's one idea I've always wanted to do. The other is, are we going to talk about a portrait of David? Is that coming up later? No.
We don't have it as a specific question,
Okay,
but please.
I'm going to tell you guys about Portrait David, which is one of my kind of like, let's say, claims to fame. Like, it was like the big breakthrough for me. I was, I forget how old I was, 34. And I'm from Winnipeg. And this curator asked me, this curator named John Tupper, who was a curator at the Winnipeg, it's like, do you got a dream project for me? And I'm like, I do, I have one for you. And it was this project called The Portrait of David. And I wanted to photograph men and boys named David from one age, from 1 to 75. I wanted to get David age 1, David age 2, David age 3, David age 4 to 75. And so I just kind of wanted to, because again, this is this kind of general and specific, the collective and the individual. And there's a lot, I mean, the reason why the name David came up, I literally looked in a kid's book, like a book of like the most common names for the last 7 decades. And like, it was David and Robert and John. And it just seemed like that's, you know, there's the famous Michelangelo David, which is the classic man. It just seemed like a kind of a good name. So what we did is we put out like an ad in the newspaper, and we put like radio announcements, and we asked around, and we put this big call out for Davids, and then we decided that the first David of every age that answered our ad would be the one. We were just like, whoever answered first got to be that David. Like, we weren't saying, oh, you know, whatever. And then it would just let the chips fall where they may. Like, 1-year-old David was 1-year-old David, 2-year-old David, that kind of thing. So we did it. We made this piece. It all happened. We had the photographer. It was like one weekend. We shot everybody. The object is life-size photographs of these David on this huge like wall, like life-size photographs. Like, I think the panels were, let's say, maybe 3 feet by 8 feet tall. And it formed like, and there was this massive space at the Winnipeg Art Gallery, which was like 2 big rooms with this little narrow doorway between it. And we fit this like Richard Serra-like structure between the 2 rooms. And you literally walk around this sculpture and see the passage of time in front of your eyes. You just see the 1-year-old, the 2-year-old, the 3-year-old, the 37, and all of a sudden, like, you just see them, people get fatter, older, grayer, lose hair, like, just in generalized form. There's lots of little exceptions, but it's like, you saw the aging process. So that was great, that all happened, it was really good. And then, close to 10 years later, I don't know who suggested, but someone suggested, like, maybe we need to do a follow-up. So we did a project called David Then and Now. And so what happened is we found as many of the Davids 10 years later to that day, the same, like it was a week, and that made the second project. And so what it was is a photograph of David age 1, now 11, David age 2, now 12, David age 3, now 13. And of course, in that time, and so again, I'm talking so fast, they had these little plaques in front of them. It said David age 1. So there were 4 categories for this new project. So deceased, some of the guys had died. Unavailable meant that we found them, but now they're living in another city and they weren't willing to come into Winnipeg to be photographed. and unknown. Some we just literally, I guess there's just 3 plaques, unknown, just literally lost track of them. So sometimes it'd be like David age 14 and then just like unavailable because now he's 24 and he's at school in, you know, Syracuse or whatever, he didn't come in. So that was this kind of follow-up to David, A Portrait of David, 10 years later, David Then and Now. 10 years later, I got asked would I like to do another project, and I did. This is all in your answer of the dream project. This is a dream project that never happened, and I still would like to do it. And so my dream project for the 20th anniversary of David was to switch the idea, because I got some criticism, why wasn't it women, that sort of thing. And I thought I would do a project where I would, wait, how was it gonna work? I think I was gonna try and find a person who was born on that same day, but just a different person. So it could be a man or a woman paired with the David, so you'd see the kind of aging process. Does that make sense? For some reason, it kind of fell through. It was just really logistical. But it did remind me of a project I've always wanted to do, which is a project that's quite possible to do, which is to go around the world and photograph people born on the same day as me, which is interesting because it's my birthday today. So we were talking about that. So like finding people like, and just see how like everyone, because there's people that are gonna age differently than you know, but we're both literally born on the same day. And I just thought it would be just a wonderful like life project to just go around finding people as you like next, when you go to, I'm going to Japan next week, like do some research, see if you can put it on ads, see if you can find some people and like take pictures with people born on the same day as you. So it's kind of funny that the 2 dream projects are photographing familiar people in this creepy van or having photographs of myself with a person born on the same day as me. They're both kind of photographic projects, but they're, yeah, which is very different than my practice now. So, but they're projects that got away, you know? Yeah. You weren't expecting that answer, were you?
I wasn't expecting so much info about David, but it's good to hear about. That was one that I saw where I just loved the work.
Oh, thanks. You know, I'm gonna speak to something like, my work has changed quite a bit. Like, you know, I would do things like A Portrait of David, like what's not to love about A Portrait of David? But again, it's sort of that also-ran idea. Like, I've moved away from ideas that are like easier to love. You know what I mean? Like everyone gets A Portrait of David. I did all this stuff about passage of time or like, so there was a part where I almost wanted to, like, how do I describe this? People love the work. They love the cleanliness of that idea. They love the, you know what I mean? And I kind of wanted them to love like a different part of me. You know what I mean? Like a different sensibility. Because like, it's really easy to love those ideas. So there was a point, so for the longest time, for the first, let's say maybe even 40 years, I don't know exactly what it was, I kind of broke off and I started this project called Lives and Works, which is really about just like taking things from my life. And I chose Lives and Works because both of them are, and I'm really bad with language, like lives is also lives and works is like to work and work of art. You know, they were both 2 words that both were what? Verb and nouns, is that it? Oh yeah. So I loved again that kind of flexibility, but I also just liked about, that's where I started to pick up things off the street. And again, I was really drawn to it. I couldn't rationalize, how do you go from like photographing men and boys named David 1-year increments that no one doesn't love that, to like finding a piece of carpet on the street and photographing it and saying, do you still love me, you know? So, yeah, I just wanted to bring that up about, definitely there was, if you actually look at my career, there really was a kind of a break in that. I mean, maybe to my detriment, but again, you can only be yourself. You can only, you know, like I was actually sort of like, again, like that it's sort of like, I saw what people loved about that and I wanted to play against that. And like, there's more to me than that, you know, there's more to me than that.
Yeah, on that topic of your early career, one of your first exhibitions, Homogeneous, are you still tackling ideas about sexuality and gender in your work today, or have you moved on from that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, it was context driven. I mean, it was a different time. Now it's like cliche to be gay, you know, but at the time it was like, you know, it was Homogeneous was a little collective of gay artists who, we were all in our 20s and we'd moved to Toronto and we were trying to find a sense of community. And there wasn't the same, I mean, I'm really not saying it was tough, but it was like not the same thing. You know, I mean, there's certain kinds, and everyone feels alienated, whether it's because you're gay or there's everyone, like even people who are like right down the center and the right, it's still like there's lots of reasons to feel excluded. We just chose that to join together, to band together. And again, like I always say, like one of my mantras is like, when I talk to younger people, it's like, make things happen for yourself and others. Like, you cannot, like, don't complain that you didn't get this gig or you didn't get into the Biennale, you didn't, just make shit happen for yourself and make shit happen for others. So that was so Homogeneous, just a little collective of like-minded friends, and some of us knew each other, some reached out to others, and we just showed together as, it was actually the anniversary of Stonewall, which is a very important event in gay history, which took place in 1969, and this was 1989, it was 20 years later, you know, sort of using Stonewall to make a reason to have an exhibition, to band together, to like get an excuse to have a show, you know, to find friends. And I think like we all, and again, I felt that was like, I made the work and it was true to myself at the time, but I was finding myself, it's like, what do I make work about? Like, I didn't know I could make work about collecting keys, you know, I didn't know that was a gap. I thought, oh, I should make work about my sexuality. I should make work about my difference. I should make, you know, that felt like the right thing to do. And I feel it was like the right thing at the time, but I moved on very quickly. I realized I was much more interested like in the passage of time. I was much more interested in my age and years at the time. So I made a lot of work about increments. So actually, even just acknowledging, so Homogeneous, I made this really wonderful piece called My Fears. It was like the fear of getting older, the fear of not getting older. It was like a counting thing. It was a mirror. It was really a fundamental piece for me to realize, well, I really just liked that I counted how old I was. And that got me thinking about, oh, that's an interesting subject matter. And so for the longest time, I made works. Did anyone see my Instagram post today? It was about making work based on your age and years. You know, like, and I made works about seconds, minutes, hours, days. Portrait of David is a portrait of a decade, you know? So that is another theme that's made its way through my work throughout the various times, is like increments of time. Like, that's something we all share. That's a kind of universal. I mean, it's something we share. It's something we've adopted just communally, you know? And so that seemed like a reasonable kind of subject matter to make kind of work about. So I found myself through that collective of artists. I quickly, you know, there's only so, because being gay wasn't a big part of my identity, it was a part of my identity, and I realized being the son of like an interior designer and engineer father was a much bigger part of my identity. My love of, like, you know, all those things became bigger, and I was able to kind of concentrate. So I found myself through that collective. It's no longer, it's less a subject of my work, yeah.
Yeah, there was actually a review, I found a review from 1989 about the exhibition, and it was called Held Genius is No Bed of Roses. And he quoted
Who's he? Do you remember who it was?
It was Ihor
Oh, yeah,
Holoditsky. Yes,
Oh, great.
Ihor Holoditsky. And he quoted Sid Vicious saying, "Sex is boring." And would you agree? Like, would you agree with this critique?
I don't know if I follow the critique, but he was sort of saying that's not a good enough reason to make a show. Is that what he was saying?
It was a review / critique,
Okay.
and about, he didn't like, at the time, he found some gay exhibitions to be very watered down and appeal to the mainstream. He actually liked your work.
Well, you know, I want to talk about Ihor. Ihor is a very special curator. Ihor is my hero. When I speak about Ihor a lot. Ihor's one of my heroes as a curator, because he was a curator outside of the mainstream. He did definitely work for like mainstream. I think he might have done PowerPoint for a while, but he's not one. He wasn't a kind of careerist curator. He didn't care about. He was such a great model for mixing like an unknown artist with like a really established artist, with a kind of neglected artist. He's a wonderful curator. He's still around. He's out in Hamilton. And he's like a kind of also-ran of curators. And don't take that term wrong. You know what I mean? It's not someone who's like, he's not doing all the right moves to become the star, to become the director of, you know, moment. You know what I mean? It's like there's different trajectories that you can take. And some people are clearly going in that, you know, making the right moves, picking the right artists, and then others just do it for their love of, you know, like some other series of love. And so he's someone who's really shown me, like, the way. And can we agree that he is a pretty amazing curator? Is anyone else working with him? Yeah. How do you feel about him, Max?
He's amazing.
Yeah, he's an amazing human being. Yeah, he's an amazing curator. I can't even speak to him as a human being. He's because I don't know him well enough. Like we're not, like we're friendly. You know what I mean? But it's more of a respect for what he does. Yeah.
He gets it.
He gets it. He's a, you know, they say like an artist, like he's a curator's curator. Yeah. Yeah, he's not afraid to pick a very unpopular artist, not afraid to like recontextualize something. He's not afraid of anybody or anything. Yeah.
So do you emulate his style in your curation as well?
I do definitely reference him. Yeah, like he definitely gave me permission to just trust my gut. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Looking at each other, who's gonna go
You
next?
have the question about.
Oh, yeah, this one, everyone, all 18 of us unanimously agreed that this question had to be asked.
Ooh, fighting words.
Well, how do you differentiate Micah the artist, Micah the curator, Micah the collector, and Micah the friend?
Huh. Well, I definitely don't think I'm a curator. I really don't. That's the one label I really don't think I am, because I think a curator, like I organize stuff, and definitely that show at the Power Plant, and I know I probably use the word curator and stuff like that, but I don't really, I think a curator is a very specific role, and I think a curator, and again, in the way that I don't think I'm really a teacher, like because I have taught, but I'm not a teacher, like, and I'll give you my definition of what I think a teacher is and what a curator is and why I'm not those. So like a teacher is one who is trying to bring something out of the student. They sense something in the student, they're trying to nurture something in the student. But when I teach, I'm really like, well, I'm not a great teacher, but I'm a super enthusiast, and how do I describe? Let's stay off the teacher. Let's talk about the teacher. Like what I did with that show at the Power Plant is not curation. I made a show with elements of other people's work under the guise of a kind of group show. The only time I ever felt I was a curator was one time where I used sort of my reputation or whatever to get a show for an artist I thought needed a show, that I thought was wonderful. So I curated a show for Michael Dumontier in Winnipeg at Plug-In. And I remember saying to the director at the time, you really should give Michael Dumontier a show. He's like, Winnipeg board, he's amazing. He's like, well, will you curate it? And I said, yes. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like, yes, if that meant that you will give this person a show. And then I really did just try to curate in the sense that like help them kind of figure out which works went where and stuff like that. I'm really rambling with this question, but I think a curator is like one who's like bringing something out of that artist. And I think when I've curated, it's more like my argument that I'm making, and I'm choosing these things that illustrate my argument. And I'm not denying those artists make those works, but it's not like, it's I don't know, maybe I'm not explaining it very well, but I'm doing it in the service of an argument I want to make rather than like supporting this other artist. I've only felt I've ever curated once in that, like where I've really just like had no agenda except to just make that artist look like the best they could, or give them some advice on like, oh, that's a little too much in the show or whatever like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like for example, Michael Dumontier, we worked with him for call ampersand response.
Yeah.
And he's also your friend.
Yes. Well, we became friends through that.
Oh, you became friends
Yeah, we did.
through the email chain.
Yeah, yeah, he was an artist that I really admired. He's still one of my favorite artists, Michael Dumontier, Stopping Off Place on Instagram. Just love his mind and the way he works. And so I pitched to the plugin that we should do this show, and then as a kind of like warm-up exercise, you know, I said, and I knew he was a collector, found things, and I was collecting. And he lived in Winnipeg, and I lived in, where was I at the time? I think Toronto, I forget the timing and everything like that, because I've lived in different cities. And let's just play a little game, like you send me an image, and I'll send you an image, and you send me an image, and I'll send you an image. And so we did this kind of email exchange called call ampersand response, which turned out to be this like, no one asked me this question, but I felt like, I think I have a top 10. Like if someone says to me, you're about to die, like what are the 10 works that you can save? Like we're gonna throw everything out, like it's gonna be amnesia. You're allowed to be represented by like 10 works, you know? I think one would be the power plant display of the artist's works. One would be Call Ampersand, which is a bookwork with Michael DeMonte. I just love that form. I think one might have to be a portrait of David. One would be the coin transfer piece at the AGO, the life expectancy of a child born, a coin that's transferred every day on each month, the increment of the month. That's the increment of the month project. So there's 4. We'll see if I can come up with that. Maybe top 5. No, that's not just 5. Then you'll have to come up with one more. So, yeah. So all is to say that Call Ampersand is just, again, it's about collecting. It's about friendship. It's about being witty with each other. It's about really connecting with someone. Because, you know, like, I know we live in this world where everything's like on computers, but like, I would challenge anyone, like it's just like, it's another language. I mean, like when someone, you can tell if you like I get email DMs all the time from artists, like you can tell right off the bat if you like someone or you connect, just like how they write you, like there's like, it's another form of communication. And I really was in my train of thought, except to say that that was just 11. Like me and Michael just like really bonded. It was like competitive, but just like playing tennis with like a really good player. You know what I mean? Like we just upped our game. Like at one point, so the game was like, you sent an image, I sent an image. In the beginning it was really like loose. And then it got super tight. And then there was like this point, I wish I could show you slides, but it's like, I forget what I sent him, but let's say I sent like a letter. This might be too hard to do without images, but. So we sent things back and forth, and I think at one point, like, let's say for argument's sake, I sent him the letter A. So then he sent me like the letter B that was similar to A, like let's say the similar thickness. And then I sent him, like when I found something that had, let's say, C and D in the similar thickness, you know. Well then he, you know, answered back. But then at one point, one of the answers had like a little number in it. So let's say it was D1. So then, of course, now you have to answer E2. You know what I mean? So like it got so hard that at one point, I think it might have taken him 9 months to respond. Because sometimes it would take hours or minutes to respond to find an image because we just go to our basement. But one was so hard to actually like have everything, like it was, we were threading the needle like with an aeroplane, you know what I mean? Like it's just like, that we had raised the level so much, it took 9 months and then I just called it off. I just did like, let's say the number, so he did like E9, or I just did 10. I got rid of the letter. It's like, fuck that, we're just like slowing down because this is gonna go, like it's gonna be 3 years till you send me the next one back. Yeah.
You loop back to the original image.
Yes, that's the game. So the game was, we started with an image of a circle on a rectangle, and we said to each other, we'll end the game when we get to another circle and a rectangle. So we got to another circle and rectangle quite soon, like 60 exchanges, and said, oh, we're not ready to stop, let's go again. And we went again, and we got another circle, and we stopped, and we made a book. And we had an exhibition, and it was at Arttex in Montreal. And we both showed up at Arttex for this exhibition because we showed our found sources in the book. And it's about half an hour before the opening, and someone wants to go for a smoke, so we go outside and we're in the corner, and I look down, and I see a piece of cardboard on the street, and I say, Michael, the game on. And I found a response to the last image in the first book, and we started the game again. And we went around for another loop, which took a couple years this time. And so now there's a second book, which is double the first book. So the first book has 2 loops, and then the next book has those 2 loops plus another loop. And miracle of miracles, and you know that there is like a higher being, the creator, because the same number of exchanges in the second book equaled the first book. Like we got to the loop on the exact same number of pages. And that's when we knew, like, there is a God.
So Micah, the artist, and Micah, the friend, are kind of the same.
Ideally.
Yeah.
Ideally. Yeah, I mean, I that's why it's so disappointing when, let's say, you don't get along. And that's to say, there's a lot of people I don't get along. There's a lot of people that don't like me. This energy is not too much for some people, you know. And so part of it is, it's really a drag when you're pulling teeth, or you're not communicating well, or you're crossing things. As I really, at this point in my life, I just want everything to be positive. Like, I just want it, like, it's not the ends doesn't justify the means. Like, having the most amazing work, like, you know, like if, let's say, the curator from the Venice Biennale asked me, it's like, but if we're not getting along, that's not going to be worth it. Do you know what I'm saying? It's really, honestly, I'm telling you, it's not going to be worth it. Can't sleep at night, you know, like, it's all about that stuff. And I have had experiences where, you know, like, we were across paths, but we're committed to work together, and it's just so deeply upsetting that it's literally not worth it for me. Yeah.
And it just sort of underscores the importance in all ways that relationship is to you. Relationship with others, relationship with objects, relationship with ideas, relationship with big groups, relationship with the individual.
Yeah, and that's not saying I get along. I'm not saying I get along with them. I'm not saying, you know, I'm not saying that. It's just saying, like, relationships are very important to me. Absolutely. Yeah. 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 And the relation of these objects together. I got the other one for the top 5. It's this piece called A Week at a Glance. I don't know if you guys came across A Week at a Glance, and it's a vitrine. So this is in my mind a lovely story. So you know the coin transfer piece I was telling you about. So it's been on view for about 30 years now. It's a piece where it's a box of coins, 906 coins, and on the 6th day of every month, one coin transfers from this ordered box to an empty box, and this box has been filling up at the AGO. And it's been on public view. And many decades ago, and lots of school groups would be taken by it, oh, look at this artwork, or sometimes people were asked to, like, one time, because the idea is you're invited to transfer the coin. And so they just open this vitrine, and like the person would grab the coin and move it to the next box. You had to sign up or whatever. So one year, I guess a school group came, and they passed the coin to every kid in the class because, again, not to fill you in with every story, but the coins were copper coins. They were not touched by human hands. They were always gloved hands. So the first time it was ever touched by someone's hands is when they transferred the coin. Again, the individual and the general. So each coin, although it's an increment of this mythical child, the fingerprints would be an original fingerprint, like a unique fingerprint on that coin. And in how many period of time will hopefully oxidize and leave the mark of an individual on this generalized portrait. So this one coin's got 30 kids' fingerprints on it. Well, I get an email one day, and hi, I'm Marcy Bronson. You don't know me, I'm a curator at the Rodman Hall Art Gallery at Brock University. I discovered your work as a student. I transferred one of the coins, it left an indelible mark on me, and now I'm a curator, and I would like to know if you'd like to do a project with me. So, I mean, you lived for that moment. You literally lived for that moment. But not only that, we made the most wonderful project together. So she said, come down, let's look at the site. It was this very interesting, so I don't know if you guys, it's not there anymore, unfortunately. Rodman Hall is no longer there. So it was an old house, must have been the Rodmans maybe, that donated their like mansion, okay, with like a bay window in it to the gallery, and then eventually over the years they built a kind of modernist structure around it, so the bay window that would be the outside is now inside the building. Are you guys following me? But now it no longer has to function as a bay window, so I think they filled it in with just like they were like storage units, or just like built, you know what I mean, like little cavities, and they put books in it or whatever like that. So I came up with an idea to do a year-long project, because I love calendars, right? And it was my project for the week at a glance. And so the idea was I turned one of these, the centerpiece of the bay window, into a vitrine. So we built like a glass front for it, we added lights, but it was limited to by the sort of shape that the bay window is. It's only about 12 inches deep, and it was 56 inches wide, or at least this platform we built, okay? We built a platform in this space that was slightly larger than that. And again, it was just kind of a miracle. I don't know how we settled on those proportions, but those are the proportions, 12 by 56, and you're going to find out that's a miracle in a minute. And then what I did is I decided that I would choose objects from my collection of found stuff, and I would, let's say, grade them. You're a 1 in terms of width, you're a 2, you're a 3, and you're a 4. And so the idea was like the vitrine would have, let's say, 3, 1, 2, 4 in terms of size. And so the idea was on the first week, it was it was found object, found object, found object. On week 2, remove the second object and replace it with another object that's the same width, right, in width category. And then week 3, remove an object, replace it the same width. Week 4, remove an object. Week 5, and what I did is I gave myself permission that it didn't have to be like 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 3, 2, 4. Each week, the display had to work. It had to work as a display. So in some cases, some weeks I would just remove 2 and put a new thing in, and then the next week I need to remove 2 till I could find, like, so each thing had to work. And we talked about just like trusting yourself, make sure this display works. So it was a project where there was 52 displays. Each week, one of the objects moved out, and a different object moved in. The other ones didn't move around, they all, because they had their sort of fixed width. So if you took a fat thing out, you put a fat thing in. You took a thin thing out, you put a thin thing in. And then by the end, I decided to reintroduce the first couple objects that had moved out quite quickly, so that week 52 is one move away from week 1, and you start the cycle again. So it became a kind of calendar. So, and I sort of figured that all out. It was really, really great. And I just sent her all, again, I forget how many objects it was, because it's more than 52, because it's 52 changes, so maybe it's 60 objects, I forget what the number is. And like with the whole map of like, take this one out, put this one in, kind of thing. And then we decided to make a catalog for the show. And because this vitrine is 12 inches wide by 56 inches across, we can make a life-size reproduction of the exhibition. So the catalog is 12 inches tall by 9 inches wide. What's 9 times 6? 54. So each double page spread is, the first double page is the left side of the vitrine, the next spread is the middle of the vitrine, the next one's the right of the vitrine. Turn the page, week 2, left of the vitrine. Turn the page, middle of week 2. Turn the page, week 3. So so the catalog is a life-size reproduction of the exhibition. Genius, love it, great. What are you gonna do on the cover? So the cover, we just kind of put a grid on the cover and put the objects in the order in which they appeared. And again, it was a kind of basically a kind of random grid, like, you know, we figured out how many objects. So we do it, and like it starts with like object 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, the order in which they're gonna turn the back, you know, whatever. And then some of the objects got reintroduced, so they go back in the grid in the order in which they had one extra spot at the end, and I was like, damn it. But no, it's a book and it needs a barcode. So that's where the barcode is. And the barcode looks like so many of the objects in the show, because they're all these like geometric, it was just like lines. So it was just like genius. It was just like, how did that work? Again, another example, you know, that, yeah. And then when stuff like that happens, you're just like, praise be to whatever, yeah, just like, phew. Yeah, so that's on the top 5 list, just because like the way the project got introduced to me, the way I met that person, how lovely it was to work with them, the ambition of the project, the resolution of the project, the catalog of the project, and then the cover of the project. Yeah. But I'll tell you, you know, so I like, you know, like life is not all rosy and everything like that. That piece, which I consider like one of my best things, it's sitting in storage, no one's interested in it. I consider it like one of my top 5 things. It's not like there's like museum hankering for my work or anyone asking or it's never been shown again. Do you know what I mean? Like you can do these genius things and the people that experience know they are, but it's just like, you know, hence also ran. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I know, and she knows, and the people that experience know, and when I tell the story, people know, and, you know, I made peace with that.
So, Micah, we have 15 minutes left. Were there any hot questions you guys have left?
I mean, I know you love to tell stories. Like, is there like an anecdote from your career that you've like never been able to fit it in Anywhere, like, is there a story you've never had, like, the opportunity to fit in anywhere that you'd like to tell?
Is it possible that you've stumped me? You know, I mean, being an artist and doing this, it's very performative. You know what I mean? Like you come up with your stories, you know. I mean, I've been, well, I'll tell this story about being performative. Because clearly, like, I feel like being genuine, but I also know how performative it is. Like, I'm aware that it's a performance that I've just done for you, you know? But I also feel like it's true. It's like the performance I want to give. Like, I feel I've been really honest and straight, but I know I've told those stories before, but I try to tell them as uniquely as I can and as real and in the moment and stuff. But I do remember there was a curator that I greatly admired who curated like all my friends and shows, and was very powerful. And I remember I gave a talk, and at the end of the talk, like he said, oops, I said it wasn't he. He said, great performance or something like that. And I was really crushed. I was super crushed by that, because it was sort of like almost saying, not great work, not like great job at like selling yourself or telling your story, just like almost putting me down. And that person, and so I guess that's a story. Like obviously, like I'm so honored you're asking me to speak here. It's such an honor, but like self-doubt never goes away. You know what I mean? Like I was so touched that you guys chose it, because I know how great I am. Like I am. You can't live your life. You can't devote your whole life. Like I have nothing. You know what I mean? I don't have an RSP. I just have my belief in myself and the work that I make and the love of my, you know what I mean? Like, and it's just so nice to be appreciated. You know, you want so much more from yourself. I mean, this also ran is maybe like a status that I've taken as a defense mechanism for not getting the things that I've wanted. Do you know what I mean? Because life is just a series of like happenstances, you know? And like, you can't blame yourself for not playing the game better, because you can only play the game the way you play the game, you know? And don't, trust me, I still have hopes for myself. I hope that, you know, like people get discovered, you know, when I say discovered, I mean like on a level where like people will see my work, you know, or understand what I'm doing, or it'll be in a museum, or I'll be representing Canada somewhere. You know, like I still have those dreams for myself. But they're tempered with also realizing I'm so lucky, like I'm the subject of this thing. I have a beautiful partner, and I have a great dog, and I make the work I want to make, and you know, I'm not on the street, you know? Like it's tempered. So I don't know how you have to kind of hold both of those things at the same time. And I'm proud of how I've held that, but that doesn't mean I've lost my ambition, you know? But I don't get my sense of self from that ambition, but that doesn't mean I still don't want these things. Yeah. Woo, this is heavy.
So genuine. So.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like I know, like, oh, you know, you're speaking this thing, but it's like, there was a teacher I had, so Ron Schubert, I don't know if you guys know Ron Schubert. So I was a grad student in Halifax, and it was near the end of my course, like the second year, and he came in, and he said, so how's it going? And I was like, I said, Ron, like I feel like I'm just starting. And he said, Micah, we all feel like we're just starting. Like that's just the nature of being an artist. Like you think you figured it out, and then you go down that route. Like it's a constant revision of like believing in yourself and coming to terms with what you're doing, and like, you know, like there's no coasting. You know, there's no point where you've kind of made it. I remember reading things like Andy Warhol complaining because Rauschenberg got 3 more paintings than he did at the biennial. Like you could talk to I'm sure Damien Hirst is pissed off. I'm sure, you know, like that he didn't get into this shot. Like it never ends, which is why you have to learn to just be really happy with what you bought while still tempering that with wanting more, you know. Yeah.
In your newspaper ad for David, you mentioned that you weren't sure if you're going to get responses from people. You weren't sure if people were going to respond to a lot of your artworks. And has that kind of confidence in yourself changed over the course of your career? Do you feel a little bit more confident now?
I like myself, like it's like I don't need other people to like it as much as I did before. Like it get less external, like I know it's good. You know what I mean? Like, because I worked it to the point where it is good. Like it is. Empirically, it's like, that's a good solution. I'm proud of that solution, you know? So when people don't like it, or like, especially like you're in the public art, like you're applying for a thing and you've got a great idea and they turn it down, it's like, are you crazy? This is other, you know, other people have other ideas, you know, kind of thing. So I don't know for sure what I'm answering there. I will tell you the thing about the portrait of David. So we were shooting a portrait of David. We had to get one of every David from 1 to 75. And there were just certain years we didn't get. We were down to like, the photo shoot was this weekend. Like, we were there at the photo shoot. And I was missing like a David aged, I don't know, 57 or something like that. Whatever my dad's age was. So I said to my dad, Dad, have you got any friends named David? Can you call them up and ask them if they'd do this? And sure enough, he called up this one really grumpy David. And the David came down to the photo shoot, and he had his galoshes on. He refused to take his galoshes off. If you look at the thing, you'll see the guy's wearing galoshes. He said, like, I don't know what this is about, but your dad's a good guy, so I'm doing it for your dad. You know, so it's like, thank you, Dad. So we got our age 57, our last David from that. So in terms of ending on a more positive note about the CBO, but friendship. It comes down to friendship. My dad's a good guy, and this guy did it as I did it for my dad. So that's the moral of the story. Be a good guy, and you'll get your last David. Yeah.
All right, I think we may have come to the end. So much for coming. This has been like absolutely incredible. I'm sure everyone had a wonderful time. But we just have like one like small final thing for you. Thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Probably just one of his clinics, but we have the card we designed.
I love it. I know what it says.
Yes. To some of your work.
Oh.
And happy birthday.
Happy
birthday.
Guys.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. How many people wrote into that?
All of the
18.
all 18.
Figured as much. You got me. You got me. I feel the love. I'm feeling the love. I'm feeling the love. Thank you so much, you guys. This has been a lot of fun.